Well, I'm Judge Williams, and I am the current Justice of the Peace in Precinct 5, Place 2. So it's not a county-wide position such as Richard's. The general area is the northwest, west, and southwest part of Houston, of Harris County. So if you're in that area, then you can vote for me, and if you're out of that area, unfortunately you can't. But it's basically bordered by anything that's south of 290 and north of 59 on the west side, outside of Loop 610, all the way out to Hockley, all the way down to, and then Katy, and then down to Sugar Land, that whole area. So it's a big piece of acreage. Now, as I said, I'm currently the Justice of the Peace. I've been there for the last 7 years. Before being a Justice of the Peace, I was an attorney in private practice for almost 30 years. So as far as experience is concerned, it's a general private practice, so I did all the things that is required in this court. And it is an extremely busy court. It is a court that has about 8,000 new cases every month. It's one of the biggest courts in the entire state. It's the second biggest court in Harris County. It used to be the first, but they decided that they wanted to try to equalize cases, so they took a lot of the traffic cases that were in my court over to another court, and it knocked me down to number 2. That said, it's still a very busy court with about $9 million of fees and fines that go through that court every year, and I have a staff of 40 that I've been working with. So it's a big and an important court. I also believe that because it's such a big, important court, and because they're probably going to be increasing the volume in one way, that they're about to raise the jurisdictional limits there that are currently $10,000 to $20,000. Now, as Richard was saying, his court has no maximum. My court has a maximum. And because of that, it's called the People's Court under most circumstances, because that's where most of you would end up. Most of you are not involved in multi-million-dollar lawsuits. You're not involved in murders, all that kind of good stuff that is actually bad stuff downtown. Most time, you'll get involved in something small. It's a fender bender where there's not somebody killed, fortunately, and you got property damage. Or you're a landlord and a tenant type of an issue. Those go through that court. We have criminal cases, Class C misdemeanors. We have civil cases as well. There's jury trials, there's bench trials, there's all kinds of administrative things that a Justice of the Court, Justice of the Peace does in that court. For instance, if there is a dangerous dog that bites somebody, that goes through the court. There are occupational driver's license that goes through that court. If you lose your license for some reason, you need to get one to drive from point A to point B to go to work, goes through that court. I work with the Harris County Sheriff's Office. As a matter of fact, we share a location together. And with the troopers, with the Department of Public Safety, and with the Harris County Constables, of course. And they come in, sometimes they want search warrants, sometimes they pick up weapons, or they pick up a property that's stolen, and I have to decide who gets it. So if you're going to be the judge of this court, you need to know a lot of stuff, and you need to be able to move it along quickly because it's so very busy, and justice delayed is justice denied. And it's one of the things that's very important to me, because if you look at that card, on the back of it, now Richard was saying, he was a little bit hard pressed to determine the difference between himself and the other person. Well, I got no problems with that, because the person who's running against me has no legal background whatsoever. He's not a lawyer. He hasn't been practicing for 30 years. He didn't graduate from law school. He hasn't been a judge. He just figures, I guess, it'd be just cool to be judge, okay? And I've seen Judge Judy do it, so I don't know. But the bottom line is, you want your judge to have the most experience. And a lot of people say, well, how can a non-lawyer, be a judge, right? Aren't you supposed to know more than anybody else in the room? Yes, you're supposed to know more than anybody else in the room. I have lawyers in front of me arguing all the stuff that goes before Richard. Discovery items, requests for production, interrogatories, and contracts and rescission and tortious interference with contracts, and all these legal theories and legal things. But in Texas, for a Justice of the Peace, the law was written that you don't have to be a lawyer. And they did that because in Texas, there's maybe 4 or 5 major cities. Everything else is kind of country. And so they don't have any lawyers out there. It's just not a big enough town to support, lawyers. And so you've got farmers and you've got ranchers and this type of thing. And so they said, you know what, if there's no lawyers out there, but they have problems too. You know, somebody's cow gets out and knocks over somebody else's fence or gets in front of their tractor or whatever. So they have problems like everybody else does, but they allow the local barber, local dentist, or somebody there locally to handle those things. And if he messes it up, because he or she is not a lawyer, then they have a brand new trial all over again. It's like if you want a new trial, you get a new trial. But then the next time it's going to be with the circuit court when he ran into town, or you go to the big city and go to one of the county courts, the district courts there. So they set it up that way. And it's a good idea for out in the rural areas. But for a place like Harris County, it's not such a good idea. As I said, I got a lot of people coming through there. I've got a lot of different types of cases, and every legislative session they seem to give more authority and more things that they want the justices of the peace to do. They're also going to have the property tax appeals in the next legislative session to go through the justice court, so that if you go for your property taxes and you're not happy about it and you want to appeal it, instead of going in that relatively biased agency, you'll go to an independent justice of the peace. So there's even more cases that are going to be coming to that court. It's just all that reason why, although the law doesn't require the person to be a lawyer, you really should, because it's a job that we're looking for, right? I'm running for judge. You want to look at the candidate who's the most qualified for the job, okay? Whether they're a lawyer, required to be a lawyer or not required to be a lawyer, is not the issue as much as the issue is what about the experience, what about the training, what about the education, and I've got that in spades and been doing the job and doing it well for, like I said, 7 years as the judge. A little bit of background about me is I've been married for 32 years. We got 2 kids, so one's an Eagle Scout and one just had his Eagle conference the other night, so he'll be an Eagle Scout. I'm assistant scout leader with the troop for many years, working with the boys and camping and that type of thing. Was a life scout myself. I am relatively proficient in Spanish, and that's important in that court because a lot of the people that are coming in there don't speak much English. And I've got to be able to let them know that, hey, I'm studying Spanish, you guys need to study English, and when I'm in court, I can only do English, but ahead of time I can let them know or tell them to get an interpreter. So it's important that I be able to speak some Spanish. Also, as far as background is concerned, I've been involved in the party for many years before I became a judge. I was a precinct chair for several years, and also as a precinct chair, I was a precinct election judge, so I volunteered and did all that type of thing. I also worked with a lot of conservative candidates. I was block walking for John Culberson, and I worked to try to elect Dan Patrick and Jim Murphy. They're all people in this area, and I worked with them. Also, I have a little military background as well. The then Governor Rick Perry appointed me commissioned me as a captain because I'm an attorney, so I was assigned to Camp Mabry in Austin as a JAG officer. But it's the Texas State Guard, so it wasn't a full-time job. So we can go there and train on the weekends and drill with the National Guard Armory on the west side of Houston. And also with the Marine and the Navy unit, which is a lot more fun than the Army unit, quite frankly. So they got to do fun things. In the Army unit, I was basically a paper pusher attorney, but with the Marine Navy, we got to run around out in the bushes and do strategic, marches and things. But that's a little bit of the personal background of me. The court itself, a lot of people have some questions about that. It is the court that's on Clay Road, or was on Clay Road. It got flooded, and they moved me into the biggest place that they found that was available, which was a closed down pizza parlor. So it's the Peter Piper Pizza Plaza, and I call it's the Piper Building. Sounds better. Okay. And my office in that place is about 5 foot by 8 foot. It's basically a closet. They put a desk in there and a chair in there because that's all they could fit in the thing. It's Astros orange, so I was really proud during Astros time, but right now not so much. Like I said, and so I meet people just outside the little area, the little closet they gave me if I have to have dog hearings or things like that, private times where I have to meet with the constables. Otherwise, they created a courtroom for me It's a big area, and like they didn't want us to build anything out because they wanted it to be a pizza parlor again, right? So we have these little 8-foot, walls that are those portable room divider things that you can kick it over, punch your hand through it if you want to. So it's not conducive to holding court. And to begin with, they told me you're not going to have a court in here because the sheriffs didn't want it, and you can't hear what's in the courtroom. But eventually they acquiesced because I said, I'm not an administrator, I'm a judge, and I need to hold court. So they acquiesced, and so they carved out an area where they put these little dividers. And I have 50 plastic chairs, and my bench is basically a desk that they kind of put up on books. It's a little riser there, so I can stand up a little higher than people. So the pomp and circumstance is kind of gone, and I just kind of walk through everybody. Here, I'm the judge. Can I? Okay,
Do you wear a robe?
Yeah, I still wear my robes. Otherwise, nobody knows who I am. Right? Yeah, so here comes the judge. Okay, so so it's what I got to work with, and I'm not there for the pomp and circumstance, really. I respect the law. I love the law. That's what I've done. I'm a constitutionalist as well, a conservative, because I've always thought the law is the law, and we don't discriminate against anybody. The law applies to all persons, all colors, all shapes, all persuasions, all sizes. And you listen to the facts, you apply the facts to the law, and then you make a decision. And we have a lot of people coming in there, as I said, and you really do affect people's lives, and that means a lot to me. The evictions, for instance, it's very sad having to throw somebody out of their home where they're living. But if they're not paying the rent, I can feel sorry for them, but I can't make my decisions based on feeling sorry for people. As the judge, you have to pay attention to the law, whether you like it or not. And if they haven't paid their rent, even if they've got some terrible disease and they lost their job and they got 3 children, I'm sorry, the landlord wants it back. You haven't paid. You have no other defense. Unfortunately, you're going to have to go. So it's difficult. You do have to do those things. So and then again, I touched on a little bit, but just to give a bit more information. It has exclusive jurisdiction of evictions. So you really got to know the property code and all the laws that go along with notices to vacate and all that type of thing. Because any case, any in the energy corridor, which is where it is, if you got $200,000 a month rents where people have whole buildings, whole floors, you still got to go to the JP. Okay. And then we have, as I said, the small claims cases. So somebody bumps in your car, somebody runs off with the money that you gave them to do the roof. That's where you guys will go instead of because it's maybe a $7,000 job or $8,000 job. To hire a lawyer to go downtown, it kind of eats up the money you're trying to get back. So it allows you to go to the Justice Court to do that. That said, all the rules still apply, all the laws apply. The only thing that does not apply in Justice Court that applies to all the other courts is the Texas Rules of Civil Evidence and the civil side. Not the criminal side, everything is run down there just like a murder trial downtown. But on the civil side, the rules of evidence don't apply unless the attorneys agree. And quite frequently, whenever there's attorneys involved, they want the rules of evidence to apply. So you got to know those rules. You're not a lawyer, you don't know those rules. Civil rules of evidence, criminal rules of evidence, all that stuff applies. So we got the civil cases, and the criminal cases, I mentioned, the Class C misdemeanors. Class C misdemeanors are cases that are punishable by a fine only, not by going to jail. So they're like minor assaults and minor theft and minor destruction of property, smaller things, which is what happens to those people. Again, it's not murders that are going down. It's that type of thing. So we got the evictions, we got the civil, we got the criminal, and of course traffic tickets. That's what's mostly going down there. So if you're around here anywhere and the DPS or the constables or the sheriff's office give you a ticket, that's where you end up going in those schools. So to wrap it up, it's really important that the person that you elect to be the judge has the most qualifications, the most experience, and that would be me. So I really ask, for your vote. Obviously, I'm Jeff Williams. I've got the card. My website is judgejeffwilliams.com, and my email is jeff@judgejeffwilliams.com. And I am happy to take any questions at this point. Anybody got any questions? Yes, sir.
Okay. You said you deal with the sheriffs and the constables.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a view on whether the sheriff and the constables should be merged as an entity and cut down administrative duties? I guess not really. The
the county decides. One thing I like to tell a lot of people is, I'm an employee of the county. I'm the judge. I'm not the king, right? So they tell me, and quite frequently, what's going to happen. I work with them because they have traffic tickets, they have search warrants, they come in with guns that they've picked up, and I have to inventory them and let them hold those as evidence to go on to a trial, that type of thing. But as far as merging them is concerned, they have different areas. The troopers, they're all over Texas, okay? They don't have that boundary where you can't cross this except for the state line, right? The Harris County Sheriff is all over the county. And then the constables is just within a particular precinct. So they have different areas. Some of them overlap and some of them don't. Also, the constables, when they were first put together, the main thing the constables were supposed to be doing is serving papers for the courts and protecting the judges. Okay, so we have the bailiffs, right? So that's what the main deal of the constables. And then the county sheriff was more of the police for the robberies and that type of thing. But because they don't have enough sheriffs, they've kind of pulled from the constables to take up that slack. So I don't know that they would merge. I don't know the expenses that is with one and with other, but they do have different jurisdictions and they do have somewhat different jobs. I don't know if that answers your question or not. Yes, ma'am.
You do weddings as well, correct?
Sure, I do all kinds
So
of things.
around the time of the primary, I had said who I was going to vote for.
I'm sorry that, okay, go ahead.
I said that I was going to go ahead and vote for you. I didn't, all of the sources I had were in your favor. Somebody commented to me, I don't remember who, but their concern with you had to do with your going out of your way to perform a same-sex wedding. I thought the best way to find out your side of it was just to ask.
I do not go out of my way in any way, shape, or form. And as it says in here, I believes in traditional marriage. I do. All 16 judges are required to follow the law. And our job is not to detect and punish sin. Our job is to enforce and protect rights that are constitutionally mandated, whether we like those rights or not. All JPs do weddings, not just me. I don't go out of my way for one wedding over the other. If somebody has a legal right, I honor the legal right. I feel that is my oath, and that as a judge, if I start trying to punish people or pick out who's a sinner and who isn't, where does that end? Do I say, okay, well, this woman cheated on her husband, so she's a sinner, so I can't do anything for her. This person was accused of theft. I won't let them in my court. It's tyranny when you have a judicial system punishing sin instead of protecting rights, like some of the Muslim countries where they're throwing people off roofs if they're sinners or things like that. This job is not a wedding chaplain or something like that. It's a very small part of the job. I probably maybe 45 minutes out of a week to an hour are involved in weddings. It's just one of the many things, as I mentioned, all these things that a justice of the peace does. Any other questions?
Brother.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. I'll get back to you.
Your opponent had originally said that you had asked for a wedding chapel to be built.
Yeah, that's nuts if you think about it. Where are those little wedding chapels?
I don't know.
Yeah, they got bells and a steeple. We're in a pizza parlor, okay? And they weren't back, and they said you can't build it out. So just the only thing that I know that people take stuff, and the opponent doesn't have anything good to say about himself. He's got nothing going for him. So the only thing he can do is try to tear me down and try to say bad things about me, and then take something that might have a grain of fact in it, such as you do a wedding. Okay, why do we do weddings? Okay, and try to blow it out of proportion. When this court, let's back up. When we flooded, we had to have a new place to set up, right? We got all these cases, thousands of cases. So the county is looking for a place. They find this pizza parlor, and they say, okay, here's a pizza parlor. It's got 55,000 square feet of open space. we're going to put you in half, we're going to put the sheriff's office in half. How do you need it? We can't build it out, but we can put little divider walls and separators in there. What do you want to do? Okay, well, if I can have a court over here, if I can have a civil over here, if I can have a criminal section over here, if I can have an area over here, to perform weddings, hear dog cases. Because what happened, not everything happens in the courtroom. In the beginning, they weren't even going to give me a courtroom. But outside of my office, they put up some little divider walls, and that is where, when somebody has a dangerous dog hearing, I come in, it's ex parte, it's just one person that got bit, they come in, they say, we want you to have that dog picked up, and then later on, we're going to have a wedding, a hearing in the courtroom. So I have to have an area, because as I said, it's open, you can't hear. In that little courtroom I have, I got like a boom box where I can talk to people with a speaker, because it's open. It's right next to the door where the door comes in, and on the other side is the sheriff's office, and they got the radio going all the time back there, and nothing goes up to the roof. And the roof's like 30 feet tall. Come over, take a look. It's an interesting place. And so you got the little courtroom here, and then you've got the entrance here, the courtroom here, and then over here are the lines where people used to order their pizzas, right? Well, that's where we set up the clerks to take in new cases. So I'm right smack in the middle of this noise stuff. So I said, set me up a little area over here where I can meet people that are not in the courtroom, where they can hear each other and I can hear each other. And I do a wedding in there. I do a dangerous dog hearing in there. That's where I meet with all the sheriffs and the constables when they come in with their inventories for guns, or when they want search warrants. That's that little area here. It's about 10 feet by 15 feet. It's an 8-foot little divider thing. Okay, that's it. And so they ran with that and said, okay, it's multi-purpose. And re-entry come in there. If a landlord locks out a tenant, and they're not allowed to just lock them out. You can't lock them out, can't beat them with a stick, can't take off their door. You got to go ahead and have an eviction, right? So they come in and they say, the landlord locked me out. I want to get back in. He didn't evict me, okay, in the proper legal way. So that's where I meet with them. I got to be able to talk to them. I got to hear them, okay? So we got a little area. So because one of the many things that is done in this little area, they call it a chapel, okay? So there you go. No wedding bells, no steeple.
Bill had a question.
It's a multi-purpose. Yes, sir.
Let me return more specifically to this question of gay marriage.
Okay.
You're going to ask a question, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I will.
All right.
When gay marriage was somehow overturned or created by the courts, by the Supreme Court, somebody asked the question, and I never really found anybody really trying to answer this, which was, how can we start marrying gay couples when there's no state legislation at all enabling that? It's just not, there's no legislative basis.
There's a thing called the supremacy clause. Every state has their own legislature. Every state has their own governor. Every state has their own Supreme Court, okay? Then there's the feds. And the Fed, and every state can do their own thing as long as it does not conflict with the Fed. And if the Fed turns around and it goes up to the federal Supreme Court, and the federal Supreme Court looks at a law in Texas or any other state and says, you know what, we're looking at that law that you have there in Texas, and that does not comply with the United States Supreme Court, with the United States Constitution. So that's what they do.
Tell me the legislation, not a court ruling, but the legislation that says you should now marry gay people. Where's the law that says, I hereby say that?
Yeah, but see, with all due respect, it doesn't work that way. That's what I'm saying. You
We have
can
a
make
court
your,
order?
listen to me, you can make your laws, all the laws you want. But if the Texas legislature gets together and says, we make it legal in Texas to kill the firstborn if you can't afford to raise them, that's unconstitutional as hell. It's murder. It's not allowed. There are laws that are made that are crappy laws that are no good, okay? And so somebody will say, this law in Texas that says no gays is a bad law. It's unconstitutional. Not allowed to do that. So they take it to the United States Supreme Court, and the United States Supreme Court says, Texas and every other state in the union, you're not allowed to say that you will only marry opposite sex, and you can't marry gays. They have the right to get married too. That's what the Supreme Court said. I don't agree with it. Okay, but there's a lot of laws I don't agree with, and that's how it happens. That's how Texas. That's why Stan Stanner issues marriage license. You know, if a gay couple goes over to Stan Stanner and wants a marriage license, you got to give it to them.
What about a
Not
man
because of a
and
Texas
boy?
lack
What about
statute.
you know, two dogs getting married, and one, is that all now, you can't ever discriminate at all?
No, there's obviously there's discrimination in various places, but they take it one thing at a time, and if somebody, we have our laws, but if somebody says this law here in Texas is unconstitutional, it's no good, it's bad law, it's unenforceable, whatever, then they go up the chain of command to the United States Supreme Court, and the United States Supreme Court shuts it down, They didn't say anything about dogs. They didn't say anything about 5 people getting married. All they said was that you cannot treat differently people that want to get married if they're simply because they're the same sex. That's what it came down. And I stopped doing all marriages for about 4 months, hoping that the legislature would change it, okay? That somebody would go there and attack the Supreme Court ruling and say, this is no good. Never did, okay? So now, as Richard was saying there, we're not going to legislate from the bench. We're going to follow laws. That's what I do. That's what and that's what all the judges do. I'm not the only judge that performs weddings. Every single one of the 16 judges perform weddings.
However, I'll be brief. However, when the
With the
legislation
question.
to enable marriage was passed, it always had in mind a man and a woman.
Yes,
It's like
I agree with you
all these
completely.
statutes we passed in Texas, everything we legislated always had that one thing in mind. There was never any intent
I agree
that
with
it
you.
applied to these other people.
I agree with you. That
So-
was what Texas law was.
So
But
I
the
can't
feds
understand
said
how
it,
suddenly we were told by the Supreme Court to apply it to a whole different section that our legislators never had in mind.
the Supreme Court does that with all kinds of laws all the time. How about abortion?
Yeah.
Okay? We
There's
don't
no
want
law.
abortion either. Okay? There's all kinds of laws that the Supreme Court has struck down from various states. That's what they do. That's the supremacy clause. They are above us. If our laws are not unconstitutional, we're good. But if our law is deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of the United States, we're stuck with it. Now, if somebody wants to go ahead and attack it and change it, I don't want to do gay marriages. Sometimes we can suppress the gag reflex. It's not a good thing. But that's what the law is requiring at this point, and that's what all the judges are doing. I don't know if they're going to try to throw out all the other judges the next time. Okay? But again, keep in mind, the job is judge. Marriages are just a little bit.
No,
Okay, you want to throw out a
it's not
good
your
judge for a
fault.
lousy judge because of that issue. Ronald Reagan himself said, you're not going to agree with everybody 100%. Okay? Maybe there's not even, maybe in your heart of hearts, you don't agree with everything in the Republican Party 100%. Okay? Maybe you don't agree with everything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth 100%. But you compare it to the alternative and you go with the best. I'm the best.